Thanks for joining me on Incorrigible. I'm Glory Sky, and our question today is, if MAGA is a cult, as the Democrats say it is, are they actually foolish enough to dismiss over half of the population of the United States as a cult simply because they don't have the same beliefs? Ignoring the silliness that over half the population of the United States supports Trump, the reason that we say that Trump supporters are in a cult is because they are in a freaking cult. A cult of personality. Look, here's the definition. A cult of personality, or a cult of the leader, is the result of an effort which is made to create an idealized and heroic image of a glorious leader, often through unquestioning flattery and praise. Historically, it's been developed through techniques such as the manipulation of mass media, the dissemination of propaganda, the staging of spectacles, the manipulation of the arts, the instilling of patriotism, and government-organized demonstrations and rallies. A cult of personality is usually established by the state or the party in one-party states and party-dominant states. Cults of personality often accompany the leaders of totalitarian or authoritarian governments. Sound like Trump supporters to you? But wait, there's more. The Cult Education Institute posted a list of cult indicators about 20 years ago, listing the warning signs that you might be in a cult. They are as follows. 1. Absolute authoritarianism without meaningful accountability. 2. No tolerance for questions or critical inquiry. 3. No meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget expenses, such as an independently audited financial statement. 4. Unreasonable fear about the outside world, such as an impending catastrophe, evil conspiracies, or persecutions. 5. There is no legitimate reason to leave. Former followers are always wrong in leaving, negative, or even evil. 6. Former members often retaliate or relate the same stories of abuse and reflect a similar pattern of grievances. 7. There are records, books, news articles, or television programs that are documenting the abuses of the leader. 8. Followers feel that they can never be good enough. 9. The leader is always right. 10. The leader is the exclusive means of knowing truth or receiving validations. No other process of discovery is really acceptable or considered credible. 11. Extreme obsessiveness regarding the leader, resulting in the exclusion of almost every other practical consideration. 12. Individual identity. The group, the leader, and or God as distinct and separate categories of existence become increasingly blurred. Instead, in the followers' minds, these identities become substantially and increasingly fused as the person's involvement with the leader continues and deepens. 13. Whenever the leader is criticized or questioned, it is characterized as persecution. 14. Uncharacteristically stilted and seemingly programmed conversations and mannerisms, cloning of the leader in personal behavior. 15. Dependency upon the leader for problem solving, solutions, and definitions without meaningful reflective thought. A seeming inability to think independently or analyze situations without the leader's involvement. 16 is hyperactivity centered on the leader's agenda, which seems to supersede any personal goals or individual interests. 17, a dramatic loss in spontaneity and sense of humor. 18, increased isolation from family and old friends unless they demonstrate an interest in the leader. 19. Anything the leader does can be justified no matter how harsh or how harmful. 20. Former followers are at best considered negative or at worst as evil and under bad influences. They cannot be trusted and personal conflict must be avoided. or personal contact must be avoided. You should pay attention, special attention right now to numbers 1, 2, 9, 10, 13, and 19. They're all heavy indicators of what's going on right now with Trump and his regime and his followers. Roy says, others have described why MAGA is considered a cult, so I won't do that here, as its energy better spent elsewhere. But I will address the false claim that over half of Americans support Trump. Look at the election results. Only 65% of registered voters in 2024 even voted. The total popular vote count among all candidates was roughly 156 million from an overall U.S. population of 340 million. So just under 46% of Americans actually voted. 77 million voted for Trump. 75 million voted for Harris, and the remaining 4 million voted for a third-party candidate. Knowing this, more than half of 2024's votes were for someone other than Trump. Literally 79 million people voted against Trump's 75 million votes, while 184 million Americans either abstained from voting or were otherwise ineligible to vote at all. Good point. But I would really like to focus more on the culty aspect of the MAGA part of movement, the MAGA faction, I guess I would call it probably. Richard says, even Trump said that he could kill a person walking down the street and his supporters would still support him. If that's not a perfect example of a cult, and a dangerous one at that, then can anyone give a better one? Does it bother Trumpers that even Trump stated several times how dumb and idiotic his supporters are for believing his idiotic comments and lies? He said this in front of many of his aides, including Alyssa Sarah Griffin, as he walked off the stage at his rallies. Trumpers say Trump is a successful businessman. Do they know how much easier to run a casino, 2 of which went bankrupt, than it is to run the whole country? Trump himself has said that he likes uneducated people. If that doesn't clue you in, then nothing will. Blind acceptance of a totally incompetent liar leads to where we are now. The first step in any progress is to recognize your serious inability to see facts. David says, the very first thing that you said is, if MAGA is a cult. That's your qualifier. So the rest of your question presumes that MAGA is indeed a cult. So let's reword it to reflect that. MAGA is a cult. Are the Democrats foolish enough to dismiss over half of the population of the United States simply because they are in a cult? No, we are not that foolish. We do not dismiss the cult. We fear for our entire planet's future because of the cult. We come from all walks, all ideologies, all faiths. We have different perspectives, different ideas, different beliefs, and yet we come together for the common good. We disagree with each other on many things, yet we don't accuse each other of being in a cult. When we say that MAGA is a cult, it's because we recognize the signs. I've disagreed with a lot of people without suggesting that they're in a cult. I've seen cults, I've helped people escape from them, and I recognize the signs. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions of my own, stepping into the Wayback Machine for these 2. 1, did you chant, "Don't be a sheep, read it for yourself," along with the rest of the MAGA base? 2, did you regurgitate the same talking points that went along with that chant without actually doing any of the reading for yourself, instead of simply taking it on faith that what you told it said is in fact what it said? If you answered yes to both of these questions, then congratulations, you are in a cult, especially given the fact that they were saying it was not, in fact, what it said. Yet people blindly chanted for others to read it for themselves when they clearly had not read it for themselves in the first place. I believe they're talking about the Project 2025 documents prior to the election. We kept screaming and shouting to the wind, please read Project 2025. He's all over it. He's going to institute this. And he said, oh, no, that's not me. That's not me. I don't know anything about that. And we're just the start of a month 11 into his presidency, and a very large portion of that Project 2025 that he claimed to have no knowledge of, no interest in. He's fast tracking it into American society, and it's horrifying, terrifying, actually. Gail says, I won't bother debunking that half the population has already been explained in other answers. I don't have a problem with people having a different opinion or belief. It is what makes us all individuals with the ability to think freely, and it can make for interesting conversation and debate. What I have a problem with is the hypocrisy of the MAGA movement and the absolute blind devotion to Trump. No matter what he says or does, MAGA will agree with him and make excuses to fit the narrative. Below are signs that you are in a cult. Read and ask yourself, is this Trump? If your answer is yes, then MAGA is a cult. So below she is listed 13 signs that your leader is a cult leader. Number 1 is a charismatic leader. 2, the leader seeks absolute authoritarianism without accountability. 3, the leader has zero tolerance for criticism. 4, lack of meaningful financial disclosure. 5, unreasonable fears about the outside world that often involve evil conspiracies and persecutions, good versus evil. 6, a belief that the leader is right at all times. 7, a belief that the leader is the exclusive means of knowing the truth or giving validation. 8, the leader has the only answers and the other way of doing things is wrong, bad, and evil. 9, the leader has some kind of experience that now makes them an expert. 10, there is a one-size-fits-all solution for absolutely everyone. 11, the leader proposes a new idea that promises to solve all problems. 12, the leader love bombs, promises a new start, hope for a future, a feeling of belonging and salvation. And 13, the leader feeds on hatred of the outside world and wants to weed out all political traitors. The allegiance to the leader is required by striking back against the outside world. Mark says, I see MAGA split into 3 groups. One group has a low intellect, follows everything that their leader suggests, does not challenge their leader, and yes, this group is a cult. There's another group that is well aware that he's a vile human being, but they feel that they can benefit financially and believe in his policies and are very selfish, so they turn their heads when they see his evil come out. Then there are the self-proclaimed religious people who amaze me because they will profess their love for Jesus and then support a heinous individual without recognizing the evil that he represents. They will be judged, in my opinion, rather harshly someday. So are all MAGA members cult members? No. Some are even worse because they should know better. At least MAGA, who falls into the cult group category, has the excuse that they were entranced or too dumb to recognize the danger that this man represents. The others just support him and should know better. Emma says, the truth is it might not necessarily be a cult and simply cult-like symptoms. The basis of Trump's following in his election as president is based upon a population in the U.S. that are devoted to white supremacy, white evangelicalism, and white Christian nationalism. The Republican Party has cycled through the same message for the better part of 70 years since the civil rights movement started. They know that they can't just come out and say racial slurs and etc. So now they use racist dog whistles to their supporters. In the 70s, it was welfare queens. And then in the 80s, it was Willie Horton type predators. In the 2000s, it was Muslims and Arabic people. The past 15 years, it's been immigrants. Their messaging relies on fear, manipulation, bigotry, xenophobia, and racism. Now, I know some MAGA are going to come here and swear up and down that they're not white supremacists or racist. I would tell them to examine the policies, look at the statistics, and listen to what their representatives have said, including Trump, who famously ran a campaign saying that the first black president was not born here, even though every person who runs for president is vetted on that very thing. You guys supported him doing it. While he refused to show his taxes like every other president has done, people don't like Trump because they believe that he's actually going to make their lives better. They love him because he gives them permission to say, rant, and rave how they want to. He makes them feel bigger about themselves, like they can just look down on someone. He airs their grievances about how white men have been oppressed, and even though they occupy over 65% of all of the high-paying jobs, they are the most overrepresented population in the country. 92% of high-paying jobs are held by white men. They are the most overpopulated. He airs their grievance about how white men have been oppressed. Even though they occupy over 65% of high-paying jobs, they are the most overrepresented population in the country. 92% of CEOs are white males. Yet heaven forbid that the new video game features a black woman or a white woman. Trump is the epitome of white supremacy and white Republican racism that has been brewing since the Southern strategy. MAGA is a cult of white supremacy and racism. Their neo-Nazi ideologies and would have supported Hitler in the drop of a dime. I used to give them the excuse that they're misinformed, uneducated, brainwashed. But no, they are premeditated and purposely ignorant. They choose not to be knowledgeable or educated on things, even when the facts are presented to them. The truth is, 32% of our country are racist parasites that should be shunned from society. The only reason that Trump won was not because they voted, it was because millions of Democrats chose to stay home. Though Eric would like us to know that not everyone who voted for Trump is MAGA. Possibly even most, are simply just deluded or too lazy to check the facts. The MAGA cult is the group of people who are aware of the facts and ignored them because their cult leader is more vital to their own self-image than the nation, the economy, or their self-respect. Hayden says that the issue here is that you're conflating Republicans with MAGA. I know plenty of non-MAGA Republicans, and I don't think that they're part of a cult. I understand that they have different viewpoint of the world and that their views are based on reason. Of course, however, people will not be hailing Trump as a divine figure after he dies, despite the fact that some absolutely do while he's alive. MAGA will be looked upon in the same way as the Manson family, as it should. The surviving members will slowly drop in number over time as the people of the cult die off until MAGA either disappears entirely or has a bunch of fringe offshoots, which are themselves bound to be centered around another person instead of being about thinking for one's self. True story. John says, again and again, conservatives in this country cry your feelings while demanding that everyone else care massively about theirs. The modern American conservative has become such a whiny baby. Any criticism, and you're all throwing a giant tantrum. You're actually using your hurt feelings as emotional blackmail here. Don't say we're cultists or we'll be mad. Unfortunately for you, the blackmail doesn't work well because we Democrats know that whatever we do and whatever we say, you Republicans will find a way to be incredibly and shamelessly butthurt over it. You'll get apoplectic over anything that Democrats say about you. The truest and most accurate statement a Democrat makes about Republicans is going to be the one that they throw back in Democrats' faces the whole campaign. Whether it was Hillary calling half of you a basket of deplorables, accurate, except her figure was far too low, or Obama saying that you clung to your guns and your religion, or just Joe Biden telling you that you should take a COVID seriously. You Republicans are going to find a way to lose your over something a Democrat says 100% guaranteed. One slight correction though, we don't call you a cult because you have different beliefs. We call you a cult because you behave like a cult. You believe the most objectively untrue things because the leader tells you to. You broke no dissent. You turn on anyone on your side whose faith starts to waver. You believe such crazy things that even when they go against all of the expert knowledge, when Trump says, I'll fix the country with tariffs, you all cheer, even though the experts say that tariffs are awful and wreck the economy. Then, when the economy gets wrecked, you all act like it's a big mystery as to why, and then everyone is blindsided by it all. Then you supplicate yourselves with more Fox News. Incidentally, have you ever seen Fox News at this point? Just this week, Jesse Waters claimed that seatbelts were a slippery slope to the government mandating abortion clinics in every car. If that argument makes a lick of sense to you, then you should get your head examined. I'm sure you're goading us Dems into responding with vitriol here because then you can claim that we're all horrible and intolerant people. But you were going to do that anyways. We lose nothing by calling a spade a spade. And in fact, being truthful in the face of liars is how we keep civilization intact and now right our country. Our country stands on the precipice of failure because far too many people in positions of power have chosen to give Donald Trump and his minions the benefit of the doubt. He's a terrible person, a terrible president, and you are wrong to follow such a morally bankrupt man. Thank you for that one. It was a mouthful. It hurt my throat to read it all the way. Let's read one more. Coligaro says, I'm going to leave with this one. The best indicator of who is in a cult and who isn't in a cult can be seen in the COVID-19 vaccine. The anti-Trump left told their viewers to get it, and Trump told his supporters to get it. The anti-Trump followers blindly obeyed and all got it as told. The Trump supporters, however, were a mixed bag, with a huge number of them sticking to their guns and refusing it, despite Trump telling them to get it. So, which one is in the cult? By the way, the people in a cult rarely realize that they are. I've also watched as many of the horrible things Trump has said have been debunked as manipulative editing. Well, I'm going to leave you with this little slideshow here, and you'll have to tell me whether or not you think that MAGA is a cult. As for me, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, lays eggs like a duck, and you can use its feathers to make your goose down pillows like a duck. It's a damn duck. And the facts speak for themselves, and the behavior speaks for itself. So I'm going to leave you with this. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe if you ever want to see me again. And as always, have the day you deserve and the rights you voted for all of us to have.